And hello, everybody. Welcome on in to the Crunchy Conservative Podcast. I'm Adam. That's Weston over there. And you are here watching and listening to the Crunchy Conservative Podcast. Well, we're here on another week on our new time, 7 p.m. Mountain
Our
Time,
new
9 p.m.
old time.
Our new slash old time. It's great to do this at night because we could actually, it's easier to research stuff throughout the day and get our show together than it is to get it done at 7 o'clock in the morning. Weston, it has been another week come and gone. Today was Native American Day, Indigenous Peoples Day. So happy
Yeah.
holiday. I hope you got a day off.
So, no, but here's something crazy. I didn't know outside of South Dakota for the longest time it was still Columbus Day. Remember when we passed it in South Dakota in I want to say like 2010, 2008, somewhere around there?
Yep.
I thought it was a national thing and everywhere just celebrate Native American Day. Come to Minnesota in 2015, it's like, oh, it's that again. Okay.
It's that day again. And as we, I think as everybody who learns more about the certain person we will not name, how much of a disaster he was. So, but we're not going to talk about that. We're not going to give everybody a history lesson. What we're going to be talking about today, Southwest Airlines canceling over 1,800 flights, blaming weather, air traffic control, staffing, not taking any sort of responsibility. And really, it's kind of convenient and kind of coincidental that it happens to be on the time that they start enforcing the vaccine mandates. So, what should we talk about here? Well, the fact that Southwest Airlines, their motto is nothing to hide. Yeah, nothing to hide here. Their low rates obviously are not helping them this weekend as they continued on through today. Many of the airline Southwest flights were canceled or postponed. Weston, this is obviously media manipulation from the very get-go and PR just trying to cover their tracks.
Potentially. Honestly, I've heard so many theories about this. I think the most realistic one is it probably is some sort of quiet strike. I think they're calling it a sit out quietly because of the union. But it's either that they do have a 2-day period where they can't fly planes with first dosage too. So it could be just everyone got their first shot, or they have a staffing shortage. I think it's more towards the quiet sit-in style of protesting work. Basically, it's a sick out, from what I understand.
Yep.
They can't protest because they get fired or they'd lose union privileges, so they're not officially protesting. But this could very well be a sick out.
According to CNBC, Southwest Airlines canceled more than 1,800 flights this weekend, disrupting the travel plans of thousands of customers and stranding flight crews. The airline blamed the meltdown on a combination of bad weather, air traffic control issues, and its own shortage of available staff. I know this is a quote. I know this is incredibly difficult for all of you, and our customers are not happy, of course. Alan Kasher, the executive vice president of daily flight operations, told staff in a note on Sunday, which was seen by CNBC. The airline said the initial problems on bad weather and the FAA imposed air traffic management problem were to blame. Although we were staffed for the weekend, we could not anticipate the significant disruption that created from unexpected ATC issues and bad weather across our Florida stations, said Kasher. Well, let's admit it here, Weston. It's got to be over this vaccine mandate. I think more and more people do not want this to happen. And the fact that the Biden administration, Congress in particular, are just allowing this to happen is really a sign that we have lost control of this government.
I think it's a very good sign that we're being overtaken by the plurality instead of a majority. Well, okay, they are the majority still because of the tiebreaker with the vice president. But that aside, we're really seeing um, the divide that this all has occurred. I mean, we saw it with California earlier this year with the recall. Right now, DeSantis is actually getting a recall. Less successful to get signatures, by the way. I think New York Post said it was at 80,000 Friday. That's a thing. Yeah, it's just showcasing the divide that continues to go between red and blue states too.
What is going to happen with this? Because obviously the vaccine mandates is not. I don't think it's actually being is or I don't think it has significant support by the public, and I would be curious to know what kind of polling numbers we are getting as this week a new poll came out about Joe Biden's approval rating now down to 38%.
That's bad. Which one was that?
That was a Gallup poll. So, and that was reported by CNN themselves. So, obviously, there's not much support behind this presidency. There is not much support amongst in the public. And now we are seeing media trying to manipulate it a little bit. I mean, the fact that CNN even reported that and didn't try to put their own spin on that is very surprising. So what does this mean for Joe Biden? I mean, we still have Joe Biden for the next 3 years. Is he going to survive these next 3 years?
Politically, maybe not. The dude's been one of the most divisive presidents to go so far. I don't think he's going to survive politically. There's too many divides in Congress, especially with progressives. It's not going to make a second election.
Yeah. And really, I think what people need to be really concerned about, my eyebrows are just completely out of whack right now, is the fact that the vice president is somebody we can't trust. I mean, she was one of the first ones when Trump announced the vaccines to say, I'm not going to get it.
I think it was trust the scientists, not the president, is what she said. But she did allude to not getting it potentially.
Yeah, I mean, both Joe Biden said it in December and right prior to the election. Actually, right after the election, if I remember correctly. You can find videos of this stuff. I mean, this is an absolute mess right now. What's happening in Washington, and really, it kind of concerns me that the people are no longer being heard. Lobbyists are now, and these bureaucrats and so-called experts are what's running this show right now. Where is this all headed to? Honestly, is this going to be blown up? Are we going to see another potential? I don't want to say it because of YouTube, but I'm going to, because I think people need to think of this possibility of potentially happening. Are we going to see another January 6th?
Potentially, but I don't know. I think this is going to be more social media type stuff that we see going forward, hopefully. Then again, someone just got shot in Oregon last week, so.
Yep, they sure did. Let's talk about more things coming out of Washington. The White House, White House science advisors call for an AI Bill of Rights. Now, Weston, I do not know about this subject as much. You are somebody who would know more about this. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to let you kind of explain this for everybody at home to kind of, make it a Reader's Digest version, make it simplified for everybody to understand.
Yeah. So basically we have tech companies like Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. They've got AI that run their algorithms and steal data from you. The bill is really looking to finally put in language that we have more than just trust in the companies themselves to police themselves. It's going to give you privacy rights. It's going to give you probably rights to your data that they sell, just like the European did. The European Union did years ago with right to be forgotten.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're going to see something like that happen out of this, and that's really what they're alluding to. They're also taking signatures and complaints that you have about the current system on one of their websites. It's super hard to find, but there is a link to it on a Wired article about this.
So right now I have an Axios article about this. The Biden administration is exploring Bill of Rights to govern facial recognition and other potential harmful uses of artificial intelligence. But the problems AI poses is much bigger than figuring out how to regulate new technology. The big picture. There's no good way to regulate AI's role in shaping fair and equitable society without deciding what that society should look like, including how power should be balanced among individuals, corporations, and the government.
Yep.
I have we've talked here on this podcast several times about how big tech is much more powerful than any other government in history. They can literally do anything they want and no one says a word about it. I mean,
there was the banning of the prince, and then there was also pulling out of Australia with Facebook and basically limiting their access to emergency services because of that.
mm-hmm. And really, you look at China. China does not. I mean, they regulate it, but they regulate it for their own purpose. You have a social credit score in China, and this is what it's starting to look like a little bit, is that we are getting closer and closer and closer to a social credit score. And that really concerns me a little bit, because that might then start restricting certain things. I mean, we're already starting to restrict people from traveling. We're restricting people from going into places because of the vaccine mandates and everything. Because of the vaccine mandates, will this administration actually take action and potentially impose a social credit score?
Well, here's the thing. We kind of already have one in place that's very light. It's called a credit score. Now, I know it's one of those things you're supposed to game the system and get better.
Yeah.
But think of it like this. That score tells us how good of a consumer we are. They're already manipulating us with our spending behaviors like that.
So, and then of course we have to also talk about, at the same time, I can't remember if it's in the $1 trillion infrastructure bill or some other bill.
I think it's
3.5. Giving power to the IRS to monitor all our bank transactions, and basically what you would think would be private, but able to monitor basically every little thing that we do.
That's not great.
It's not great. Where are we headed with this, people? We are headed down a dark, dark path. Now, I know there's a lot of people out there who will be like, no, we're not, no, we're not, no, we're not. I'm going to tell you a book that everybody needs to read. It's a very complicated book, but once you read this book, you will have a completely different understanding of what actually China is like, okay? It's called The 100-Year Marathon, okay? It's a book. It is an actual legitimate book. It was written by a former CIA agent and an author who talked about the 100-year plan for China to become the #1 economic military bigger than the United States as a world power. This plan is supposed to end in 2042. That's not too far away. Really, it isn't. 2021, we have about 21 years until that plan is officially done. And if you read the book and you look at what China is doing, they are on track. It is very scary to be thinking about this, because they want to become bigger than the United States. They want to become the #1 world power here and be able to control the means of production in the world.
Mm-hmm.
The United States has been always the top dog, okay, in terms of military and economic power, and also just being a superpower amongst the world. I mean, there's a reason World War One ended quite shortly after the United States entered. There's a reason why World War Two ended shortly after we got involved. Is because of how big
Adam,
and
the
how
war went on for
strong.
4 years after we got involved in World War II.
Yeah, but we really, if you actually look at history, like if if the United States was not involved in World War Two, that whole entire war would have been totally different because of
Oh,
how fast,
absolutely.
because we were the only ones who could actually step up and defend these countries from Nazi Germany at the time. I mean, heck, France just said, "Here's Paris. We're leaving. We're getting out of here." So, because of the United States stepping in and being such a big superpower, we are losing that status. And let's be real. China is not should not be considered an ally. And to be honest, and this is something I think is what's happening, especially with cryptocurrency right now. If you want to look into this, China banned all cryptocurrency entirely. Just so you know, Weston, you froze up. Um,
Yeah.
so, um, while he fixes his camera here, um, just unplug your webcam and plug it back in, buddy. That should help. Um, they banned all cryptocurrency. Now, you would think for people who are in the crypto market, that would have made people get out of the crypto market entirely, but it didn't. It's actually going up. There's several different coins that you can still invest in. I'm not a financial advisor. I do not suggest any of these things, and I will not give any sort of advice. But it's one of those things that you're going to see with cryptocurrency to see how well it does, with the fact that the whole Chinese market is entirely gone now. And we hear all the time, especially from Hollywood and all these other places, that you need the Chinese market in order to be profitable. Well, in the cryptocurrency market right now, that's not the case. It's actually doing quite well. Bitcoin is doing fine. Dogecoin, for those who invested in Dogecoin, is doing fine as well. Dogecoin is just one of those ones that's always going to influx up and down and it's never going to really balance out. And there's certain things like Stellar and other coins that are doing quite well now, that are on the rise. So what does this really mean? Honestly, I'm calling for all these corporations to back out of China. Okay? I get it. We get products from them. They have certain products the United States doesn't have. But is there a way we can find a way to make it with different products for those things to work, or can we find those products at home? And I'm really calling for these corporations to cut ties with China entirely, because China is a threat to this world. And I know Facebook and all these Twitter bots and YouTube and everything, they're pretty much in cahoots with China, if we're going to be real, because of how much of a user base there is. But China controls everything there. They have control over the media. They have control over what people do from a day-to-day basis. I mean, heck, we saw it at the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic, on how bad it really, really was. And hello, Weston. Welcome on back in. I'm
Hi.
glad you could figure this out. But really, these corporations like Nike, like Adidas, Netflix, Hollywood. I mean, a list. We could sit here all night and come up with a huge list of these places. They need to pull out of China.
Yeah, absolutely.
What
I
do you
kind of
say?
wish Adam Silver would have stepped up hard for that back in, what was it, 2019? And instead,
2018, 2019.
he bent the knee, though. He said, we don't care. The Uyghurs are actively being put into a concentration camp. We don't care. Give us your billions.
And now we're also seeing China step into Afghanistan for resources. That's scary. That's scary to
Yep.
think about on the international trade relations. And really, I think people need to, excuse me, need to really take that really into consideration as we move on in this world. I mean, it's a very scary thing. China is not the Chinese government. Chinese people, the people who live there, I'm not being racist at all. At all. I think they're good people. I want more Chinese immigrants in the United States. If you I had a Chinese roommate at one point in time, and she loves it here. She said she'll never go back. She'll never go back to China. Why? Because we're the land of the free. This is the best country that has ever been conceived in the entire world. All right? Name me one country that's better. Name me one country that we can have all sorts of ethnicities live under one system. Seriously. Name one without nearly the problems that we see across the world. Name one. There isn't one system. If you look at the Constitution, if you look at how the Founding Fathers constructed this country, they did an amazing job. They knew that some of these problems were probably going to come up, even though most of the Founding Fathers were slave owners.
Mm-hmm.
They were, I bet in their heads they went, this is going to become a problem someday, and they're going to have to figure it out. And we did.
Well, you do know, once I believe it was Vermont pulled out of slavery before they signed the Declaration of Independence. I believe it was like 9 of the 13 rid of slavery at that time. So it's already a dying idea.
It was a dying idea. The only states that kept it, obviously, were the southern states. So it's quite we live in such a beautiful country. We really do. You don't, if you watch what happens in England, like people in England seem so happy, but just look at the system of government they have. Look at what they have to go through. I just found out that they have to have what we would take for granted here, a TV license that they have to pay for yearly. On top of what they get, what we would call cable.
Mm-hmm.
That's insane.
Want to know something even more insane?
What's up?
It's technically illegal to insult their politicians because they can deem it as bullying, and it's illegal to bully it's illegal to bully your politicians in England. So criticizing politicians as freely as we do, not a thing over there.
Yeah, we can criticize all we want, and honestly, this is getting out of hand. What's happening here? The shining light of democracy is dying, people, and we really, really need to focus our energy. The government is the bad guy here. It's always been the bad guy.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think we fought a revolutionary war? It wasn't just to separate ourselves from English rule. It was a fight against governmental tyranny. That was the whole premise behind the Revolutionary War, was because people were not represented in government. And now we are dealing with the same problem today. California coming up with more mask mandates and vaccine mandates, restricting more people's freedom around the state. Gavin Newsom just he survived the recall, but
keeps on Gavin.
He keeps on Gavining. Will he survive the next election?
Probably.
Do you think?
Wait, I thought what is a governor in California's term limit? I think it's 2 elections, right?
I don't think there is a term limit.
There is. Arnold Schwarzenegger was done because of a term limit.
Let's look at this.
I think it's 10 years. No, 10 years can't be right.
We're gonna look this up.
Either that or it's
8
2
years.
consecutive. 8 years. So 2 elections.
Hold on.
Now.
Have term limits. Thanks, Google, for not providing me the answer.
One sec.
It says 2 terms. So he won't be able to run again. But obviously, there are people that are next in line in the Democrat Party in California.
Like
But
potentially the lieutenant governor.
lieutenant governor. But let's take a look at some of the Republicans that will be running. Obviously, Larry Elder going to be running, and that's somebody who I would say I think a lot of people could get behind.
Absolutely. Even a moderate like me got behind him over Caitlyn
He
Jenner and some of the others.
he's obviously very intelligent. He has his own radio talk show, heard nationally. And he's somebody I think a lot of conservatives can really get behind, and even the moderate Democrats in California can get behind. I mean, let's be real. This recall election that happened in California was it wasn't a Republican recall, as Gavin Newsom claimed, because I'm going to be honest. If it was just a Republican recall election, it would have just been Republicans running on the ticket.
Mm-hmm.
Not a single Democrat. There was a lot of Democrats on that list as potential candidates to take his spots. So that's kind of an interesting thing if you think about it, that it was pretty bipartisan. So, well, let's talk about the debt ceiling bill. This one we're gonna call out a lot of people in this. Really, we're not going to talk about any of the Democrats because we knew that they would support this. They've been supporting stuff like this for a very long time. Who we're going to call out are the Senate Republicans. What are they thinking? I mean, we had people like... I'm going to have to do it. Good old Mitch McConnell. I don't know why the Democrats don't work with us. They said that, the president said that we would be working on both sides of the aisle here, but they don't just seem to work with us now. I should just go back to Kentucky and just live in a log cabin and just enjoy my life. Mitch McConnell. I mean, I know a lot of conservatives don't even like him. But he just put the final nail in the coffin.
It's these Bush-era neocons that are still in Congress.
See, and this is I'm very embarrassed to even say this. I'm embarrassed for my state. The 2 South Dakota senators, Senator John Thune, who's Mitch McConnell's number 2, and Mike Rounds, said yes. They agreed to it. No, I'm sorry. I am a little bit pissed off. But
even more of a sting, Rounds used to be the governor.
Yeah, Rounds used to be the governor of this state. And he is totally embarrassed. Our 3 representatives in Congress are completely fucking useless. All right? There's Republicans in the Senate are only good for one thing right now, and that's bending over and taking it up the ass by the Democrats. I'm going to say it. It is absolutely asinine that they allowed this to go through, that they said yes on this. What is going to... Let's vote them out.
I wish they don't have a strong enough barrier behind them or in front of them.
I was going to say...
The Republican caucus is so divided between old school and new school, you're not going to get a majority then to be like, well, let's support this one instead of that one because we might lose the one that's already there and then Democrat might win.
See, here's the thing. John Thune has apparently, and this is all rumored, but I would see it with how long John Thune has been in office, and he is, he won an election against Tom Daschle, who was also a very prominent senator. And somebody who everybody thought could not be beaten in an election. Same with John Thune. Nobody thinks that he can be beat in an election. He has the largest war chest in Washington. Now, for those of you who don't know what a war chest is, that is money for elections. That's straight up what it is. Now, I don't know if we need to change some campaign finance laws, but the fact that we have people with war chests still, and what? What happens if he loses? What happens to that money? Does he just keep it?
Maybe it goes on to the next Republican caucus.
I mean, it is ridiculous how much money that guy has for re-elections. Now, I'm calling out for South Dakotans to step up here. We need somebody else in office. We need a different Republican. We need a younger conservative, a moderate conservative who is going to work with both sides and come up with compromises, but also stand for certain issues. That's what we need. We don't have that right now. I mean, hell, look at Nebraska and Ben Sass. What a dumbass he is becoming. Thank you very much, Adam Ironsign, for the subscribe. For subscribing. We really appreciate that.
Go, Adam.
We have to get this right. Because I'm sorry, South Dakota's going to turn Democrat if we don't.
So what? I mean, it almost went Democrat this last election. Who knows? Maybe it would have been better. Maybe you would actually have legal weed instead of the governor being like, no.
Are we going to bring up this issue? Are we actually going to talk about this? Because I got a lot of opinions about this shit right now. Because of one thing. So last November, I want everybody to understand. Last November, South Dakota voters, 56% of voters voted in Amendment A. That is to legalize marijuana across the state. Then guess what? Our governor sued us. Krusty Gnome, I'm going to call her. Krusty Gnome, who was a Trump ally, and I don't believe that for 1 minute that she was. I think she just wanted national clout, as most politicians were when Trump was in office.
Mm-hmm.
Said, no, we're not going to have legal weed. Nope. Took it to the Supreme Court. We are now waiting since July of this year, when the final arguments were heard in the Supreme Court, for a verdict. Mm-hmm. This was supposed to go in effect by now. Legal marijuana was supposed to be in effect by this time. That is how bad this is getting in South Dakota. We will call, and for those of you who are new to the podcast, we're crunchy conservatives, but we're going to call out our own side too for being dumb.
Amen to that, brother.
We're going to call them out as much as we call out the other side for being dumb. We're going to call out the other side for being dumb, our side for being dumb as well, because this is how we don't win elections, is by doing crap like this. Like, we can agree marijuana should be legalized. It should be decriminalized across the board federally. Okay? Honestly, I hate the show Adam Ruins Everything, because I think, even though he says that he's fact checks everything, it's a little bias on one side of the aisle, but he was right about the fact that marijuana laws were just really an attempt for to scare people into smoking marijuana and using Latinos and everything. Mm-hmm. And that is something we can't have. We really can't have that. As much people didn't like it here, 56% of voters voted for that bill.
The majority, not just the plurality, the majority.
Yeah, we're the first state in the entire United States to not only vote in medical, which was an initiated measure and part of Constitutional Amendment A, but also a part of, and recreation, and then legalized recreational. First state ever to do that. And yet here's our governor just slapping us in the face. This really has me concerned, because as businesses come here, there's a lot of people who are getting turned off by this.
Mm-hmm. Here's something interesting about what you just said. Tell them why they have to pass an amendment and not just a law.
So, our state legislation and basically the South Dakota government is basically built on very old conservative time laws. Like, it literally, there was a law almost passed saying you needed 60%, a supermajority, to pass constitutional amendments. And also at the same time, the South Dakota state legislature has a history of, when a law gets passed, doing everything they can and they don't like it, doing everything they can. I was on the anti-corruption amendment here. It was IM-22 at first, and then it turned into the anti-corruption and constitutional amendment. I was on the petition campaign for that. I got that. I was part of the process of getting that on the ballot for the election in November in 2016. It did not pass. It did not pass at all. Excuse me, not 2016, 2018 is when that was on the election bill. And that, to me, because IM-22 got voted through, it was to stop lobbyists from giving gifts and stop bribes and basically give more power back to us, the people, which is, I would say, is a very conservative thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
And
at least right now it is.
Our politicians and the state legislators did everything they can to avoid the Supreme Court. They deemed it unconstitutional, which, if I remember correctly from basic civics class, the legislator does not have that type of power. It's ridiculous. Our legislators have had a history of literally just pulling laws and doing everything they can. They spent $600,000 to get rid of the IM-22, and it did not pass. It did not pass the next election cycle as a constitutional amendment.
Mm-hmm.
So just so everybody understands, you could actually look up. I hate to promote them, but they actually have a very good video about the anti-corruption amendment in South Dakota. The Young Turks does. They actually described it quite well of what was happening here with the IM-22 issue and why the anti-corruption amendment was being a constitutional amendment. So, Weston, obviously you live in Minnesota. You've not much you can do with the Republicans there, but a Republican can win in Minnesota.
Yeah, they definitely can. In fact, I don't even think Walz was he won a clear majority. I think it was like 65 to whatever, I think 35, but that's still beatable numbers. It wasn't Newsom after recall, 68 to 32. That's incredible that he could pull off a victory off of that big off of a recall. But yeah, Republicans win here. They almost won in Dakota County with their state senate, House representative. I believe it was less than 100 votes in a about 200,000 populous county. It was incredible.
Yes, it was. And I know Minnesota's really, you have, besides the cities, a lot of the outside areas is a very red area. So it wouldn't surprise me if that tide changes, especially with the fact that Minneapolis currently is going under some scrutiny with the basically what I would call an anti-police bill.
I think that's pretty accurate. Want me to kind of explain what that is?
Yeah, go ahead.
So basically, after the George Floyd incident last year, the city council famously said defund the police, and this is kind of the baby that's come from it. The law would basically amend the city charter, since right now we have a police requirement number in the city charter. So it would get rid of that, replace the leadership politically with the police officer or the police union, rid of the police chief. Now they answer directly to the city council and the mayor instead of just the mayor and the chief. And it removes the minimum number required for police officers per population. Because right now I think it's one officer per every 720. It would be one officer per 0. There would be no requirement to staff any police officers, or as they're calling them, peace officers in the ballot question 2.
That's scary.
Yeah.
That is actually, I didn't realize that second part. That is a scary number. Like, let's be real.
And we're understaffed right now, and it's pretty terrible.
You have a lot of police officers who are leaving Minneapolis and moving to outside areas, or moving to South Dakota.
Yeah.
In North Dakota and Iowa.
Meanwhile, we're on record pace for homicides in both St. Paul and Minneapolis.
And that was going to be my next point, is that the homicide and the crime rate in the Twin Cities is up. This is not helping the chances of this law getting passed.
No. And you would be shocked. It is like dead beat middle. It's slightly favored to say no to it, but I mean slightly.
Wow.
I don't know. I'm kind of not comfortable with this election because of how much I'm not sure. It's going to be a tight one, especially here in the Twin Cities with that law, despite how radical it seems, just because of the somewhat really blue attitude here. Uh, when the moderate is hard Democrat, the extremes tend to be a little different.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's going to be
Now,
interesting, especially if all the city council members get voted out too that were supporting it, which is a real possibility.
now let's talk about this for a second because I don't think many people actually know this. So Minneapolis and St. Paul, they're completely different cities. Is the same law also being introduced in St. Paul?
No,
No.
no.
Okay, that's very interesting actually, considering that's the St. Paul mayor. Uh,
Well, the stuff didn't happen there, and I don't think it's normal for people to be like, "Get rid of my cops, please." I don't like living in safe neighborhoods.
now, now you obviously live in a kind of an uncomfortable area in Minneapolis, and obviously crime is up. We just, a few weeks ago there was somebody who was shooting people from a bridge, if I remember
No, no, no. They
correctly.
shot. So it was right by the 94 bridge on 49th Avenue in North Minneapolis. Dude pulled up to some car and just started shooting a auto-seared rifle into their car. And then that car zoomed off, trying to escape. Dude unfortunately passed away and then ran onto the interstate, thankfully just into the service road. So it did not go into the highway at the time, which is about 7. So a lot of people are generally on there and coming to a rest in the surface lane.
Wow, that's something that yeah, I would say is not good.
No,
Um,
here's a scary statistic. Last year, only 5 detections of automatic fire with our spot shotter or shot spotter technology here with like 40 some rounds. This year, 78 with over almost 1,000 rounds being fired from automatic weapons. Scary stuff, dude. They're
dude,
really ramping it up.
they it's a disaster over there.
Mm-hmm.
And can you see why I'm not visiting you anytime soon?
Hey, we've only had one discharge of automatic weapon fire by my house. It
Well,
happens everywhere, right?
it's everywhere. Not where I
Right?
live, because everybody has a fucking gun here.
Yeah, so it's automatic fire there anyway.
Well, Weston, be safe. Just
Will do.
it's and I hope other people are being safe as well. Of
Hey, man.
course,
We just had a mass shooting in St. Paul, actually. Oh, you hadn't heard this?
I have not heard this.
Yeah.
Okay.
Last night, there's a mass shooting at St. Paul. It was at a bar and restaurant, I believe, Tom's. Um,
uh,
15 people shot, 1 killed.
so
And it was 3 perpetrators, and they've now been arrested and I think charged too.
So KSTP Eyewitness News Channel 5 in St. Paul. That's St. Paul, right?
Yep.
2 suspects have been charged with a dozen felonies, each in connection with a shootout that killed 27-year-old Marquisha Wiley and injured 14 others early Sunday morning in St. Paul's Entertainment District. That's right by the XL Center, isn't it?
I would imagine so.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's probably close. I can't be more proud of the life-saving measures that they took with our fire department paramedics, bringing calm to a chaotic situation, just a tragic situation where there was so much blood, so much chaos, conflict going on at the same time, and gathering the evidence necessary to bring the prosecutors to bring the prosecutor to help us hold people accountable. End quote. St. Paul Police Chief Todd is it Axtell told
I think so.
Channel 5 Eyewitness News. Terry Brown, 31 of St. Paul, has been charged with 1 count of second-degree murder and 11 counts of attempted second-degree murder. Devondre Phillips, 29 of Las Vegas, is charged with 12 counts of second-degree murder. Wow. That's
It's
insane.
bad.
That's real bad. That is. Wow. And yet never, people want to, one political side of the aisle wants to take away our guns and dismantle the police force. Oh my Lord, we are absolutely fucked in terms.
No, I'm screwed. You live in another state.
I live in another state, but I mean that could easily change,
True.
depending on how well this administration goes for the next 3 years. Um, we're gonna talk about one more item. Um, let's go, Brandon.
Let's
Let's
go,
go,
Brandon.
Brandon.
I
Now,
can't get the key right because I actually haven't heard it yet.
so I'm going to talk about this because this is an absolutely hilarious story, and I like to end these shows on a good note. Now, for some of you, for Weston, he knows this. I'm a big racing fan. I'm a big sports fan. I will wake up on a Sunday morning at 5:50 in the morning to catch the Formula One race all the way in freaking Turkey this weekend. All right, that's how
Not your
dedicated I
Jeff
am.
Gordon racing.
I'm a dedicated person. As some of you can see, I have a sim racing rig. I just love motorsports. All right. Not this was it this weekend? No, it was 2 weekends ago. NASCAR was at Talladega, Alabama. Okay. Now, for those of you who don't know what NASCAR is a oval, is a stock racing series. Very, very awesome to watch. I watched some of it. I was a big fan when I was a kid, and I keep up with the storylines. Of course, they run a couple of different series over the weekend. One of them is the Xfinity Series. That's the lower level of NASCAR to get into NASCAR, and they ended up having to call the race because because it was getting dark and they don't have lights on the track to race at night. And the guy who won it was named Brandon Brown. Now, Brandon Brown has never won a NASCAR race in his entire career, so a huge moment for him. Now, NBC Sports is the one who broadcasts this live on NBCSN. And as he was being interviewed, the crowd was chanting, and I'm going to say it because screw you two. Fuck Joe Biden, as what's been a trend amongst a lot of sports events and concert goers. And the interviewer, I can't remember who it was literally said on the mic, and listen to these cheers. They're cheering, "Let's go, Brandon." If you listen to it back, it's not "Let's go, Brandon." It is
Yep.
definitely not "Let's go, Brandon." But because it's NBC and it was live air, they had to somewhat cover the tracks. We'll see what I did there, of what was actually being said. So the reason why we see all these, you see the chants now in the hashtag "Let's go, Brandon," is because of that one particular interview. And I tell you what, I haven't laughed so hard at a political meme, and I am so glad there are other media entities like the Hodge twins and these other places that are taking it up now upon themselves to start saying, "Let's go, Brandon."
I love it.
I love it. I absolutely love it. Because it just shows you what the media is really trying to do here. I mean, I don't think the interviewer was trying to trying to wash up. I think he genuinely thought that they were saying "Let's go, Brandon," because they're wearing headsets. They're not, they don't hear quite as easily. So I'm guessing there was a producer in his ear saying, "Make sure you say it's 'Let's go, Brandon,' just to make sure that, FCC regulations and all that." Okay, I understand.
Yeah.
But this is just absolutely, it's getting, I mean, I'm going to admit, it's getting kind of old, the "fuck you, Joe Biden," or the "fuck Joe Biden" chants. I mean, we saw Christian colleges chanting "Let's go, Brandon."
I love it. It's finally something I can say.
It's finally
Let's
something
go,
you can
Brandon.
say. So now we're probably going to hear "Let's go, Brandon" for quite a few, with the chant of "fuck Joe Biden." And I'm not going to bleep myself because we're a podcast. We're an unfiltered podcast. We need to make sure we tell the truth and we say it unfiltered. So yeah. So that's what's happening. amongst college football games. I mean, this is going to get interesting come college basketball's time when they're indoors,
Yep.
and you can literally hear everything that's being chanted.
Or hockey time, because there is college hockey that's popular here, but
Yep.
nowhere else.
Yep, college hockey and also NHL season is underway as well. So
Go Golden Knights!
just stop. Just stop. Okay. Okay. Can you just be a fan of Minnesota for once? For once,
I like
sir?
the Lynx.
So, well, folks, that is going to do it for us here this evening on the Crunchy Conservative Podcast. Make sure to hit that like button and the subscribe button right below Weston. We appreciate that. Thank you to our new subscribers. We really appreciate it. We're trying to grow this as much as we can. We would love to get this podcast grow bigger and bigger each week. So, but we want to thank everybody for watching. You can also rewatch the VODs. We keep the VODs up for everybody to see because we don't care about what YouTube says because we have that First Amendment. So, Weston, any final thoughts?
You know what? Look at what AI does to you and what it steals from you. Go support that OTSP.
What does OTSP stand for?
Office of Science and Technology Policy.
Thank you. All right. Well, thank you very much, folks. This was the Crunchy Conservative Podcast. Make sure you tune in next Monday at 9 Eastern for more crunchy action right here on the Crunchy Conservative Podcast. Thank you and have a good night.
Good night, y'all.